Another opinion poll, but it's one that you didn't see being celebrated by much of the government-loving media that's around right now. It shows pretty much some broad-based dissatisfaction with the new government. Of course, one that, if you believe Twitter, is the greatest government of all time. But it shows us that just 23% of Australians believe that the current government is doing anything positive when it comes to the cost of living. You know, today was all about inflation. We'll get to that in a second. But just 23% of people say good or very good when it comes to the government's dealing with cost of living. 41% say poor, and 37% of people are getting on with their lives. But why does this matter? Because if nothing else, while yes, they got a 43% mandate for changes when it comes to 1% of the world's climate change problem, they said one thing over and over again in every single state in the country before the election. One of the reasons to change the government was because inflation was out of control, because there was a cost of living crisis.
Absolutely smashed by the rising cost of living on Scott Morrison's watch.
We have a cost of living crisis here.
The epicentre of Scott Morrison's cost of living crisis.
We need to do something about the cost of living.
A situation where Australians, when they look at the cost of living, every household finds every week harder than what came previously.
Vote for a government that understands that the cost of living pressures mean people are falling further and further behind.
And they were right, or at least Australians agreed, because they won. Now, they only won just, but still, they won the election. Every single day it was about the cost of living, every single day. Well, that was weeks ago, months ago now. But guess what's happened since Albo became Prime Minister? Since the Labor Party was in charge of the country's finances? Inflation has gotten worse. In fact, Australia's inflation rate, as released today, is now the highest in 32 years. Think about this. More than a couple of generations of people, 32 years. Overall inflation now 6.1%. Furniture is up, fruit and veg is up, housing is up, clothes are up, petrol is up, even bread and cereal is up right now. But what did they do today on the first of too many days they'll spend in Canberra, navel-gazing and talking about things other than the situation that, as Tony Burke says, gets worse for Australians every single week and has got worse every single week after the election? Did they do anything today about the cost of living? No. They were talking about far bigger things, like dealing with 43% of 1% of the world's climate problems.
I believe it will impact how the world is seeing Australia if this legislation isn't passed. Not in a, determinative way, but it would be disappointing.
That was their priority today. Your life has got harder every single week since the election. It was getting hard every week before the election, which is why they changed the government. Yet this new mob have done nothing. Sweet fatty Adams when it comes to the one big reason why there was a change of government. And the media seems to be more than happy to not really talk about it. They had to talk about it today because the numbers were clear. But how much of the past lead up to this parliament starting was there any conversation about cost of living? How often do you read those profiles? Well, of course, never. Because all of it was used as a weapon to change the government. And I'm not sitting here fighting the last election for the next 3 years. I'm talking about the reality that normal people in Australia are doing it harder every single day. Everything from the petrol you put in your car, to the bread you put in your mouth, to the furniture you put in your house is getting more expensive every week. Yet they are doing nothing. The best that the Treasurer can say today is it's going to get worse before it gets better.
Inflation is high and rising. It will get tougher before it starts to ease.
Well, I'm sure that's great comfort to the people who the ABC went and spoke to today at a bingo hall in Melbourne. One of them is a lady called Sharon. Sharon says, it's just everything from your oil to your meat. You can't afford it. We've had to cut back on our food. We're feeding a family of 6. Oh, no. But nothing today out of Canberra, instead climate change. Or what about a bloke called Aldo at the same bingo hall today. Meat is very expensive. I'm now eating meat 2 or 3 times a week as opposed to every single day. Yet nothing happened today in Canberra to make your life better. Nothing has happened since this government came to power. Their best case scenario is to say we might have something for you in October. October! It's not even August, let alone September. But it's all going to get worse before it gets better. And magically, somehow, you will have to pay for it. There are some fundamentals here that, again, the first and earliest report card on this new government is a big, fat F. With just under a quarter of all Australians believing that this government's doing anything when it comes to cost of living, and those people are just the hardcore partisans who voted for Labor and the Greens. For the 3/4 of the rest of the country, they know that this mob isn't up to it. They talk the talk, but they will not walk the walk. Instead, they're trying to preserve the new car smell of the brand new limousines that they all have as ministers. Enough. Whatever they're planning to do in October, they should have done yesterday. Whatever they are planning to do in the second half of the year, they should be doing tomorrow. Every day they don't act, your life gets worse. And it is not good enough for them to turn around and pretend to say that it's everyone else's problem. If cost of living was the previous government's problem, then it is the current government's problem too. And it is a failure of the media in this country that they are so easily distracted because so many of them live in Canberra, where according to the census, that's the part of the country where incomes are higher than anywhere else, where unemployment is lower than anywhere else because, of course, they work for the government or the business of government. Never forget it. I won't. Meantime, Anthony Albanese believes, like all lefty leaders, that whenever they win forever. And apparently there's a brand new spirit of awesomeness because they're in charge.
And some people apparently didn't get the memo about the new politics. The new politics is about getting things done and achieving outcomes and working together.
Unless, of course, it's anything to do with cost of living, where nothing happened today. Or it'll get worse before it gets better. Thanks, Scoop. I'm so glad you're in charge. I'm so glad that you're the tradesman that can come around and tell me that, geez, you got a problem with your toot. Yes, I know. Feel free to fix it. Instead, their climate policies will add to your bills, will add to the cost of business. It will make life harder. But of course, the media, as I say, is all out there trying to pretend that up is down, black is white, nothing to see here, Jedi mind tricks, everything's awesome. The reviews are in, and already Albanese believes in politics with purpose. He's determined to pop Morrison's Canberra bubble. And the promise was that now that there was a brand new broom in town, that there would be nothing but peace in our time when it comes to question time. That moment every now and then when a government kind of has to answer a question that they don't want to answer. And apparently Albo, well, he lost his cool just 7 minutes into his first question time in the big boy's seat.
The question suggested that. That was the point. The point of the question was that I wouldn't regard that behaviour. That is precisely what I was asked.
Oh, someone didn't get the memo about the new politics. The new politics where we all work together, where everyone is marching as one to the beat of the public housing boy from Marrickville.